Well, welcome everyone. Myself, Beth Steluto, Lily Cantor, Ken Kurtzing, and I are your hosts today. We are thrilled that you're here. It's really exciting to see the interest in coming together to support companies founded and led by women. We had a launch event, a live launch event in Mill Valley in the Bay Area 2 weeks ago, and are quite encouraged by the enthusiasm for Empower Her. um, and today we're going to have a rather informal approach. Think of it as a fireside chat more than a presentation. I think our formal remarks will take 25, 30 minutes to introduce Empower Her to you, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So with that, I'll introduce myself. As I said, Beth Steluto Dunaire. I'm a services executive. I spent the bulk of my career at Schwab, where I built and marketed products to democratize access and help people realize their financial dreams. I've worked on Wall Street. I've worked supporting financial advisors. I've run the gamut of both building products and running lines of business there. For the last decade or so, I've operated at the intersection of entrepreneurship, philanthropy, and impact investing. And my personal interest in entrepreneurship really got started in early stage investing when I was the founder of a startup bringing financial and investment advice to middle class Americans. And it deepened with work that I did at Impact Assets and also in a participatory angel fund that also invested in women. At this stage of my life, I am advising some of the companies in my own angel portfolio and the board of Marin Sonoma Impact Ventures, which is a venture fund and community designed to build the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Marin and Sonoma counties. And with that, I would like Lily and Ken to introduce themselves. And before they do so, I would just like to say that I am so grateful to Tim Freundlich and Ken Kurtzig for building the platform that is allowing Empower Her to exist. And I am grateful to have met Lily Cantor just a mere, I think, 3 months ago, and to join forces with her to bring Empower Her to life. So with that, I turn it over to you, Lily.
Thank you, Beth. Hi, everyone. Nice to see all of you today. I have a very long background I started off as a CPA and I worked at Microsoft at the end of my corporate America tour. I have been a serial entrepreneur now for 20 years. I started Serena and Lily 20 years ago, and I'm an incredibly passionate entrepreneur and obviously a female entrepreneur. But I also got very involved in venture philanthropy back in the year 1999 when I left Microsoft. And so this intersection of philanthropy and building companies is absolutely in my core passion in life. And I would say kind of my back half of life is going to be very much at the intersection of how do we bring these worlds together. So when I met Ken, gosh, I don't even know when that conference was, Ken, maybe back in January or February, I'm not even sure. But when I learned about Catacap and the ability to actually use donor advised funds to invest in kind of micro investing, I thought it was like the coolest thing. So I just kind of jumped on and said, let's do this. Let's create a collective of passionate people interested in funding female led companies. And we're going to talk about our why as it relates to that. And then I'm going to shout out to Ken to just give us a quick intro about his. And I'm not sure, is Tim on the call?
Think he's running for the first part, but I don't see him yet. So, but he's going to join
Okay.
part of it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm Ken, and I just love working with Lily and Beth on this project. And kind of, I've been in tech for 25 plus years. I don't want to say how long. Built a couple software companies, and as part of that journey, working with Impact Assets and Tim and Beth and Lily and others, looking at how much philanthropic capital is not having the impact that it could, especially money sitting in like donor advised funds where there's all this capital and people will make donations for part of that, but a lot of the core capital is sitting there not doing a lot of good. And so looking at how do we really unlock that, and Empower Her is the perfect example of how do you, create a community where you can put hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars into women-led companies using that system. So love working with Lily and Beth, and so glad you're all here.
Great.
So I can
Going to
go
move
to the
us forward.
next.
So, what is Empower Her? We are looking to bring together people passionate about investing in women about women-led companies, those that have a social or environmental impact. So we want to bring people together to invest in great companies led by women, founded by women that are doing really good things in the world. And both Lily and Ken have talked about using philanthropic dollars. Our vision is that money would flow from either a donor advised fund or a foundation, and really have that be a reallocation of that money and then we'll aggregate that and use the power of the collective resource to make investments in women-led companies. Um, we will invest, at least at the outset, in companies that have been referred to us by other impact investors. Some of those that, if you are in this space, you might have heard of Radical Impact, Kapoor Capital, How Women Lead, among others. I think all three of us have pretty strong networks in the impact space and have had some amazing companies referred to us. Then the investment committee, which right now is myself and Lily, and we are looking to expand that, will vet those companies further and say, okay, this is a small slate of companies that we think would be amazing to invest in. And then we will invite those founders to pitch to the membership of Empower Her, where you'll all get the opportunity to hear what these companies are up to. And then we will vote, and the membership will actually make the decision from this vetted list of which companies we invest in. And, by aggregating these, we will have the opportunity to have more people participate, have fewer people on a cap table, and just really be able to make a difference. And yeah, Lily, we.
Yeah, so kind of the why. I mean, this is a fairly known statistic in terms of how few women actually are able to get invested dollars. It's pretty crazy when you think about it, that still the statistics are showing that 98% of the VC funding is going to male-founded businesses. I actually think that there's also an additional why here. Um, I think impact-led businesses are absolutely need to have aligned capital. Serena and Lily took money from venture from Sand Hill Road, and honestly, it was the biggest disaster our company ever had to deal with. That's a 500-page book for another time. But I definitely am a strong, passionate believer in aligned capital. And I can't think of a better alignment than using philanthropic dollars to invest in impact, and being able to support entrepreneurs in a way that is authentic to their mission and not putting additional pressure onto a very authentic mission of what they're trying to do. I'm very excited about this idea of alignment. I'm very excited to support women-led businesses and making sure that they have the type of people around their table that can also help them with introductions. And so I think it's just an incredibly needed and a very cool model. So, um, anything more on that, Beth or Ken?
I think is Gaia on the call? I think we also wanted to hear from her in her example of how hard it is for women, just the difference that she experienced raising funds. Did she make it on?
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate being invited to tell a story about the perils of being a CEO and a woman at the same time. Um, I'm happy to say that 4 years after the incident that I'm about to share, my company is thriving. Dashboard Earth is its name, and our mission to incentivize everyone to adapt to climate change is very much on track. But back in the beginning, it was just an idea backed by $50,000 in angel investment from two of my childhood friends. And I did what I was supposed to do, which was to get in front of 350 investors over the course of a year. And one of them will remain nameless, but suffice to say, it was located on Sand Hill Road. And I was invited by one of the founders for an in-person meeting, which of course sounded promising. So myself and my tall white male co-founder flew up from Los Angeles, and we found ourselves seated across the table from at least six, maybe seven young white men, a couple of older ones. And I started to speak, but not one of them was looking at me. And after about 90 seconds, my co-founder says, sort of politely interrupts and says, "Gentlemen, just so you know, I won't be speaking during this presentation." Um, and I speak for about another 90 seconds, and the guy on the far right gets up and leaves the room, and everybody's whole entire body language just like shifts, and they were like, okay. And I'm like, I think I'm just gonna stop and be like, I do you mind me asking, like what it is that just happened? And the founder of this company, an old guy, I mean, nice guy, but like he reaches his hand across the table and he squeezes my hand and he says, "Your passion, it really comes through." And I was like, okay, that is that is great. I have now learned that I am not actually supposed to be passionate about what it is that I do, at least in this setting. And so I don't know. Thank you for letting me share my story. I'm happy to say that I did have six investors who came through with $250,000, and I'm now $8 million of non-dilutive capital into building this company. And yeah, we just got on the Catacot platform ourselves for a raise of 1.5. And I love everything that's happening here. And being the product of very patient capital has been incredible so far. And I look forward to more of it. So important when it comes to impact. So thank you, Lily and Beth, for everything that you're doing, and excited to contribute.
Okay, thank you for sharing your story. I have so many stories. At some point, we'll have to have a glass of wine. I have so many similar stories, and there is definitely a thing there related to this. Um, so we can move ahead. We're really excited. We already have quite a few members that have joined our collective, and we really hope you will consider. We are trying to get to 500,000 as our initial fund, possibly 1 million. We will make 5 to 12 investments, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50,000 to 200,000. And we are looking for, growing our membership at the $5,000 level to $10,000 level. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Go forward again. Um, you know, $5,000 to $10,000. I wanted to just talk about that for a moment. When I talked to one woman who became a member, she said, "Oh, so this is moving money from a donor advised fund or a foundation for the most part. That's our vision." And she just said to me, "Well, that's a no-brainer. That money is already sitting there being invested. This way I can invest it in women-led companies, in impact companies, and then that money can come back to my donor advised fund or foundation." And I loved when she just said, "That's a no-brainer to me." Um, I think that's what both Lily and I thought as we were considering this. So our investment focus, as we've said, will be women CEOs and founders. And I have to say, I am just really inspired by the women that I'm meeting, the people that have been referred to us, the companies that they are building. And I think we all just want to make it easier for these founders to bring their products and services to market. And I want to support generative capital. And as Lily talks about it being aligned capital, where we want to be on this journey with the entrepreneurs who are building their companies. And in terms of capital growth, we want to provide women access to the company. Gaia talked about the first 50,000 came from friends. Not everyone has friends and families that can step up to help bring great ideas to the market. And early stage investing is vital for these companies to have a chance. So, at the stage of a company, we are looking a little bit later at the outset. So we want companies that have had some level of market acceptance, whether that is revenue or some other indication of traction. We want to believe that they have growth trajectory to be a company that grows. We're not necessarily looking for the next unicorn, although wouldn't that be nice? And a unicorn is a company that reaches $1 billion is the market parlance for that. We don't have a particular geographic or sector bias at this point, and we're thinking about US companies at the outset. All of that said, we are looking to expand the investment committee. We're seeing a lot of companies in the health and wellness space. We're seeing companies that are focused on climate and climate mitigation. And so we'd love one or two people to join the investment committee that might have that expertise. As you know, I do also want to say, though, that as an early stage company, the early stage companies have that investment has some risk. So, we will hopefully see all of the companies that we invest in grow. The typical portfolios of early stage investing have some that do incredibly well, some that do okay, and some that may fail. And it does take a while. So the time frame that we're looking at for this investment pool is probably somewhere between 5 to 10 years. So it is aligned capital, but also needs to be patient capital. And we want empower her to create more opportunities to invest. So not just the pool of investment, we also see that we have an opportunity to bring people together who want to make their dollars work for these women-led companies. And just to give you an idea, we don't want to go into the specifics of the companies that we're looking at, but some that we're really excited. One is a platform that is offering screening tools in schools to identify early symptoms or early indicators of mental health issues. And their vision is to decrease what is typically an 18-year gap between the onset of first symptoms and first some kind of treatment or intervention. And they are really making some market traction there. Another is a company that is providing rental of baby and child equipment for when people go on vacation. And that one, the impact is twofold. One, it's keeping people from buying cheap stuff that they will just throw away at the end of a vacation. But secondly, providing a whole different set of support services for small businesses that are providing these rental equipment. So, Lily, are there any that you wanted to just kind of chat about conceptually and kind of give an idea of some of the companies that we're seeing?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we're, like Beth explained, we're seeing a lot in the climate space as well as the health and wellness. So if anyone is on this call and wants to get engaged with us, we are absolutely looking for some subject matter expertise in those two particular areas. I would say that my background is very strong consumer and consumer facing businesses. So that is definitely in my wheelhouse. But we're seeing some very amazing climate opportunities and a lot in the kind of companies that are in the FDA approval stage. So any and all expertise we would so appreciate. What excites me the most about this is the circular nature of using philanthropic dollars that are already committed philanthropically, but being able to grow those in a kind of putting some money into this sector, if you will. Not something I can do inside of my Schwab DAF today, but Ken's going to explain how they've done this mechanically and in a way that allows for you to do grant making to the organization. But being able to, the idea of helping companies that are doing positive good for the world and then having the ability to actually grow your philanthropic dollars as a result of that investment is the thing that appeals to me the most. And when I think about, I traditionally get somewhere in the 5% returns rate on my Schwab DAF. By putting $10,000 into Catacap / Empower Her, I'm, not getting $500 a year for my giving, but the idea of being able to diversify that $10,000 over a number of companies, like Beth said, some are going to fail. It's just the nature of this stage. And we're being also given the opportunity to invest in later stage. There's a company that is actually raising $10 million and wants our check to come in with that 10 million. And so she's so excited about what we're doing. She's not only joining as a partner, but she's like, I want you guys to be on my cap chart. So we are getting opportunities just by the, community that we're beginning to build. And I do think we'll have a diversified portfolio that will have some home runs and we'll have some failures. But the idea is that the $10,000 or the $5,000 check that you put into Empower Her is going to be spread across many companies. And it's definitely a portfolio approach. So I'm really excited about it. We could.
You want me to talk a bit about Catacap and how the whole system works?
Yep, please.
So that was an interesting transition. So hi, I'm Ken. So at the beginning, and I worked on building Catacap, kind of the tech guy behind this. And I think Empower Her is, like, for me, the epitome, the perfect application of this, of using philanthropic capital. So there's a couple different ways that people use Catacap to invest. Either they have a foundation, or they have a donor advised fund, a DAF, or they just do a regular donation, just like they would to Greenpeace or Planned Parenthood or whoever. So for the first two, for a foundation or a donor advised fund, there's already money sitting there in the foundation or the DAF, and it's already being invested, whether it's at Schwab Charitable or Impact Assets or Marin Community Foundation or your own foundation, your own financial advisor. Like, you're already doing investing. One of the challenges that we saw was that a lot of this money that's sitting there isn't having any impact, or almost no impact, or in some cases even negative impact. So if you really care about gender equity or climate change, like, how much of that money sitting in a foundation or a DAF is actually like doing the work besides the 5% maybe that you donate every year to your favorite causes? So how can we unlock that capital or part of that capital and actually do more good with it in line with what you care about? And then also for annual giving, this is a great way for people to not just do their regular donations to their favorite charities, but actually like double their impact. So they can, if they want to support amazing female-led companies, great. And if they do a $10,000 donation, and in 7 years it comes back as $15,000 or $20,000, now they have $20,000 to invest in other women-led companies or donate to their favorite charities. So that's kind of the mission or the goal of Catacap. So as I mentioned, it's kind of a nice little closed loop. So the way that it works is people make either a grant from their foundation or their DAF, just like they would any other grant. For, let's say you want to be a member. I'm a member, so I actually donated, and my wife is also a member. My mom's a member, so we're all big advocates of Empower Her and all that this group is doing. So you make a grant from a foundation or a DAF, or you can also just do a credit card or bank donation, and you'll actually get a tax receipt for your donation, just like any other donation. Once the money comes in, it all gets put into the Empower Her fund. And the Empower Her fund is basically aggregating all these investors, right? All these donors / investors, we call them, with the goal of reaching the $500,000. And then the investment committee for Empower Her will start choosing, along with the Empower Her members, like where to invest these funds. The investments get made in, let's see, that's step number 3, I guess. The investments get made into, let's say, 5 to 10 different companies. And let's say of those 10 companies, 2 of them do really well, 6 of them do all right, and 2 of them are not as great. And it turns, the $30,000 investment, let's say in this case example, becomes $40,000. That $40,000 will basically come back to Catacat, and then it'll come back to basically your controlled account. So if you put in $30,000, you'll then see basically $40,000 in your account at Catacat, which you can then either say, love this, love Empower Her, love what it's doing, I want to do more investing in women-led companies or other things with Catacat, or you can donate it back out to your original DAF or your foundation, public foundation, or you can donate it to another 501c3 charity. So that's kind of how the flow works. Anything to add to that, Beth or Lily?
I think you did a good job. I think a couple of things that I would add is that there is a fee. So Lily, Ken, and I are all doing this on a volunteer basis, and because it's in Catacap, we are able to offer much lower fees than you would be able to if you were doing this on your own. We have the equivalency. We have somebody who is providing the investment processing and investment administration for us, and that's really where the fees are. There's a fee of 1.25% each year. And for those of you who have invested in funds before, there is no carry. And so we really want this money to go back to amplify the philanthropy piece of it, to go to the founders. And just from a fee standpoint, the first 4 years of that fee would be collected or deducted from the donation, and then any subsequent annual fees would be deducted from investment returns down the line. So just so that we're transparent about that. But I think
And
you
I
did a nice
don't know
job
if everyone's
explaining.
familiar with impact assets, but they're a very large $3.5 billion impact investment company that is administering the actual investments on behalf. So that is actually where the fees are going. The actual fees that are being charged through Catacap are to administer and do the diligence that's necessary to make these investments pass the impact lens. And so they are basically the custodians of those monies. I don't know if you want to add to that, Ken. I don't see Tim.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the big differences is impact investing from philanthropic dollars from DAFs or foundations or just general donations has been around forever, and impact assets had about $4 billion under management. The big difference in what we're doing is that in general, you could not do a direct investment for less than $100,000. So if you're like, hey, I love this company, I want to invest, if you have usually $50,000 or $100,000, but it's kind of ramping up, you can do a direct investment and your name will be on the cap table or your foundation, your donation, whatever, and you're an investor. But if you want to do $10,000, $20,000, like it's just not an option. And so that's where we decided to create this pooled structure so that you can get 100 people that all believe in supporting women-led companies. They don't want to do a $100,000 investment, but they're like, hey, I'll put in $10,000. Let's aggregate this. Let's have $1 million and let's have a big impact. And so that's kind of the big focus for us. I hope that answers your question.
And I also want to add to that, Ken, that to an entrepreneur to have to manage hundreds of people on their cap chart is not something they really want to do. So being able to manage one party on your cap chart of this collective is a really exciting opportunity for the entrepreneur as well. I'm starting to see questions coming in over the chat. So it's probably as good a time as any to start to open up the floor and start to hear some of the questions. Deb Lester asked about lending on the platform, and there are many ways that we will invest in companies. Everywhere from a lot of our safe notes and convertible Lending is absolutely going to be one of the ways that we can engage with entrepreneurs. We are even talking about rev sharing. So there will be creative ways that entrepreneurs can raise money. Was that your question, Deb?
No, I was actually wondering if we're also going to be offering talent and help, like donating our time to some of these businesses that really need help. Because that's what I'm finding more than anything else is that women just need founder's best friend.
You know, I think there's opportunity there for sure. I see that Marcia Darewood is on the call, and she was part of the Next Wave Impact Participatory Fund that I was part of. And one of the things that organization did was just a newsletter that went out that said, this is what the portfolio companies are looking for. And so I think there will be opportunity for that. I think we're looking at how we grow and how this unfolds as more people join us. But I think that there are certainly opportunities for that. And then I also see a question from Marcia about, do we have restrictions on solicitation of the fund since it's with philanthropic capital? And we don't. So we don't have to limit that. We can be open. You don't have to be accredited investors if people know what that is, their income and asset level thresholds. So we can be a lot more. We have a lot more flexibility and latitude in that regard because it's basically, yeah, it's already philanthropic capital that has been donated.
Right. So that I'm happy to hear that because I think we should all be talking about it on social media. You guys should be on podcasts talking about it. You can come on my podcast and talk about it.
Oh, yeah, that'd
I've
be
had
great.
several people on already talking about investing through a DAF. So I would love to like promote this everywhere. I was just making sure that you didn't have any solicitation
Yeah,
restrictions.
and
I didn't
just
think so.
I want to say something about donor advised funds or DAFs. I think anybody that has one obviously knows what it is, but for those of you who don't, it is like a foundation that you don't need hundreds of thousands of dollars to start. So you basically make a tax deductible donation to a donor advised fund. That money is invested, it grows until you decide to make grants out to nonprofit organizations. And so, yeah, we're looking to reallocate some capital from that investment pot into Empower Her.
One other thing I might just add to Marcia's question. I mean, for the Empower Her Fund, it's open to pretty much anyone. I mean, you could donate $250 if that was what was right for you, and contribute to Empower Her. I think, Empower Her is their goal is to bring on members that'll each contribute $5,000 or $10,000 or more. And by doing that, you'll be able to have a voice in like which companies are invested in, and kind of supporting Empower Her to grow. But I know Empower Her is open into all, so we've tried to make it pretty accessible to be able to support Empower Her in a lot of different ways, and kind of lower that threshold.
And I think the reason why we want to bring more people engaged in specific industries of impact, because I believe that the way we can help these entrepreneurs be successful is via our networks. One of the hardest things for entrepreneurs to do at this stage is raise capital. And to the extent that we can help grow their revenue or grow their capital base and make intros, it will only help these entrepreneurs be successful. So I think having the ability to have people in our network that can help the investments we make be successful, I think is the way we want to engage and add value to them at this stage. I just want to make sure we're answering all these questions that are coming in. There are a lot of questions related to debt or equity. And it is flexible in our model. What we're seeing mostly right now, we are getting an opportunity to invest in a priced round with one of our investments, but for the most part, they are all in the form of a safe or a convertible at the moment. Can you think of anything else, Beth? Is there anyone that's not raising money in that form right now?
No, I think that's it. And just to put that into context, if you don't know, a safe and convertible notes, it's basically you're saying we're going to give you this money really almost as a loan. And then when you raise more money down the road as it's priced, then you convert what you've already invested into equity at that point in time. You may have there we're typically would get a discount or some other provisions that make it beneficial to do early. But the biggest benefit is helping to get these companies out into the world. And I see there was another question, is all of the company in the form of equity? So Lily was talking that we could do debt or equity, but we're not doing non-dilutive capital. So we are actually making investments that we will expect a return. And so it's not a government grant or a philanthropic grant. So they are investments.
I may just come. I know Bridget asked that question. I think the goals are these are all investments, as Beth said. So there is some expectation of return because the goal of CataCap in this area is to grow the core account so that you can do more good in the world. These are not just donations. But I do think that there are a lot of we work with impact assets on the investment piece, and Deb Parsons, who works at Impact Access, is here as well on the call. There are a lot of ways that funding happens through impact assets and through CataCap, whether it's equity, could be loans, it could be revenue shares. So I think there's a lot of non-dilutive models that could also be successful. And I think that as Empower Her grows and they work with more entrepreneurs and more and evaluate more deals, I think they'll be able to evaluate those for sure. The key is A, supporting amazing women leaders and helping them thrive and be successful, and B, having these be investments are like the two main criteria.
Then I see a question from Roxanne about how we envision engaging the community. The crux of it is we want to invite all members to be on pitch calls. And we don't know if we're going to do them monthly or quarterly. We have our first one scheduled for October 8th. So anybody who is a member by that time will invite in to be part of that pitch session where the founders will come in and tell us about their companies. And then we will vote on the investments that we make. So I expect that we'll do those bi-monthly or quarterly. We just need to see, for one, how much capital we have and what the pace of investments that we're seeing is. But we absolutely want to engage the community so that we amplify our impact and amplify our growing knowledge about these companies.
Beth, do we have 5 or 6 companies presenting on October 8th?
I think we have 5, maybe 4. I think one has maybe already closed their round. So one of the other things that we're finding is as we get introduced to companies who are raising capital, as we're getting this started, they're closing their raises, and so they're no longer opportunities for us. But I think we'll have 4 or 5 on October 8th.
And I noticed somebody asked a question related to non-US investments. I don't believe we are making any non-US investments at this time.
Oh, and then Catherine, I see you had a question about if you don't have a DAF set up. Absolutely. If you make a donation to CataCap that Ken talked about, whether you did it from a credit card or a bank account, that is a tax deductible donation. When it's a transfer from a donor advised fund or a foundation, that tax deduction has already been realized. So it's a reallocation.
By the way, I know Lily's going to go through like kind of what Empower Her is asking, but just in case someone had to leave early, there's a QR code on the screen, or also I put a link in the chat that you can go to, and it's just a super simple 30-second form online if you have to leave early and you want to join Empower Her. So,
hey, Ken,
yep.
There's a question from Kimberly Blattner. We talked about that we're volunteered. Are there any paid staff on CataCap? And
Yeah, great question. So we have an engineer, we have QA, we have an admin person, And then I think that's all the paid. We have Tim and I who kind of lead this. We're both doing volunteer, and this is a nonprofit. So I am not doing this to make money. I'm doing this to unlock like billions of dollars sitting there that could be supporting amazing companies and female entrepreneurs and other entrepreneurs. And just to clarify, under CataCap and under this umbrella of impact, CataCap allows people to do investing in, clean technology and BIPOC-led companies and, medical device companies. And there's all different areas that fall under impact that we are enabling. Women-led companies are one of the areas. So yeah. We are actually in the process of fundraising right now. Tim Freundlich, who co-founded this with me and is working on this project voluntarily, to bring on more funding for our nonprofit so we can actually start to hire people and kind of ramp this up. We're now at close to $1 million in funding through CataCap. Our goal by the end of the year is $2 million through CataCap in funding, and kind of ramping up from there. But it's been a good clip so far, and now we want to kind of start ramping that up.
Somebody's asking how can we recommend someone for climate? I'm going to put Beth and my email in the chat, and please send it our way.
Yeah, I can put my email in the chat as well.
Oh, great. And then we had a company of how will the pipeline of companies get to us? So other impact investors that we know will refer companies to us. So at this point in time, as we're just getting started, we will we're co-investing. So there's somebody else who's a lead investor, and we will work with them, and they will share what they know about these companies. And then the investment committee will further talk to the founders and talk to people who we know are experts in this field. Oh, I see. The question is, how will the companies position this on their cap table? So we're positioned on the cap table. It actually will be Impact Assets will be the investor that is on the cap table. So everything gets aggregated, and so it's one on the cap table.
So the way that I may just add in. So let's say, Empower Her raises $500,000 from whatever 50 or 70 members, and then $100,000 investment gets invested in company A by some amazing woman. That company does, and the investment would be Impact Assets. Let's say that company goes public, and now that $100,000 investment becomes $1 million. That $1 million comes back to Impact Assets, back to CataCap, and then the underlying investors. So there's, we said, what did I say, 60 investors. The money gets distributed among those 60 investors into their CataCap account. So that's how it kind of goes out and then comes back. But it is one investment, one name on the cap table, and that's how we keep track of the money out and back in.
So Suzanne,
yeah.
So CataCap is the nonprofit that has the platform that we're using to aggregate everything, all of the investors in Empower Her. And then Impact Assets is actually operating as the investment administrator and investment processor. So, as CataCap is relatively small, it is mostly volunteer based, and Impact Assets has a lot of infrastructure and capability to make that happen for us.
And so CataCap is really under their Impact Tree Foundation is the actual public charity that one is making the grant from their DAF or from their personal checkbook or from their foundation. So it's going to a public foundation, which is Impact Tree, which is, I think you're going to change the name, Ken, maybe to CataCap.
We're in the process of changing the name just to simplify, yeah. But the parent organization, nonprofit that I run, and again, I don't get paid, there's all volunteers, is Impact Tree Foundation. And the program for this program is CataCap. We have a couple different programs, but this program is CataCap. And again, the money gets basically passed through for the investments through Impact Assets. So And the only fees that we have for anyone is the one-time upfront fee of 5% for 4 years, which basically covers impact assets fees for doing the investment management. So CataCap doesn't charge a fee, Impact Tree Foundation doesn't charge a fee, and also we don't charge fees to the companies. So there's no like hidden fees or anything.
Are there any other?
I don't know if Beth and Lily, you want to talk about kind of how people can join or what the ask is, and then we can continue to kind of monitor questions in the chat.
So where are we in meeting our goal to 50 initial investors? We have, I think there's like 15 or 16 who have signed up already, and there's probably another that we have a whole lot more who are in the process. So we're encouraged by where we are. And Andrea,
we've also had some individuals come in at the $25,000 level. So that's helping us get to our financial goals. But as founding members, we're hoping to get $10,000 to be a founding member, which will also participate on investment decisions and vote. But we also have folks that are joining us at 2,500 and 5,000. We want to make this as accessible as possible.
so Andrea had a question. The 5% is actually collecting the 1.25% fee for 4 years upfront. And then I
So
see Tim
we don't have
join.
to keep doing like capital calls or just to cover the fees. We just do one time upfront just to simplify it.
But there is still the 1.25% then also gets accrued each year for the fund is in existence. We don't collect any more from anyone. That would be deducted from the later year investment returns. So if you think of it as 1.25% every year, the first 4 years we charge up front, and then the subsequent get charged against any investment returns that we earn. Oh, Kimberly, yeah. So if this, when the investments, the question is, for those who inherit this investment, can the money be reclaimed? So the way it works is at the end, any investment returns would go back to each member's CataCap account, and then they can either put that back into, that can return to a donor advised fund. It can be returned to the foundation. It can be reinvested in Power Her, or it can be granted out. So it can never come back to the individual themselves because it's all philanthropic capital, but it can come back into the donor advised fund or foundation. So Catherine asked, is there a commitment to focus on women of color as leaders as part of this work? I think that we are certainly open. We want to, we want to support great women-led companies, and that isn't a explicit objective of ours, but certainly we are open to that and want to be as inclusive as possible.
I also think I think Beth, you and Lily have talked about this a lot. Like this is a journey, and this is your first fund. And I think it's really exciting what you can do. And so, really focusing on how do you make this successful and then continue to expand from there. So part of, the ask today is for people to support this. I mean, if you believe that supporting amazing women-led companies and founders with philanthropic capital is a great way to do it, then certainly joining and supporting Empower Her from this, from the very beginning is the best way to do that.
It looks like Roxanne answered her own question.
Yeah.
Ken's one of our investors, and absolutely not. We want to have as many investors that believe in women founders. And it's not an expectation to participate on the investment committee at all. It's just an additional opportunity if one wants to join on our founder summits and listen to the stories and vote, that will be open to all of our founding members.
But I do think, Lily, we do want to expand the investment committee a little. I think our objective is to get it to, five-ish people. So,
Yes.
One, I think that there's an opportunity. We certainly want expertise in different areas, different sectors. But I think the other thing is that the more people become involved in this, the more they reach out to other people, and the ripple effect can just be huge. And we can, this first fund, we hope to get to 500 or 1 million, and then we'll learn more. And we envision this growing to, the sky's the limit, actually. And I would love nothing better than to see more money moved into women-led companies. So. Shall we? Lily, you want to?
I want to make sure everyone feels like their questions have been answered. I am looking at a question from Barbara related to helping explain to founders this model and this new channel of funding. We're pretty authentically honest with some of our founders that we've met so far on kind of valuation expectations, as well as trying to at least get them to help them understand the process of taking outside capital. The thing about where we are right now is we are getting referrals from impact investors, institutional impact investors. So the founders we're speaking to at the moment are pretty vetted. We have not opened up the opportunity for founders who have taken zero money from institutional investors. We will, but we're really trying to build some kind of risk tolerance into the portfolio before we look at pre-seed monies and earlier stage than where we are right now. We plan to, but at this stage, we want to make sure we've built a really strong foundation to the portfolio to enable for some additional returns because we want to be successful. And so we will introduce more risk into the portfolio as we build out the dollars that are available. I hope that answered your question.
Thanks, it did.
Okay, thank you. So we hope you will join us. Our next event is on October 8th, and that will be from 4 p.m. to 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. And that will be for Founder Summit for our initial set of investments. And we will continue to have in-person gatherings. I see a question about that. We had an amazing event a few weeks ago. We had about 80 people show up, and it was an amazing group. So yes, we will continue to have in-person gatherings. And
I want to echo Lily's, just please, we'd love to have you join us. Ken said the QR code is there. We'll send it out. But as I think about, this journey of empowering visionary women entrepreneurs who are building businesses, we all have the power to change the world. And I just, the more people who join us, the more money we can put towards founders, and we can move that darn 2% to 5%, 10%, 20%, 50% is where it should be. I would hate to see a great idea lie fallow because they can't get the capital to make that dream come true. So if you can join us from your DAF or foundation at the $5,000 or $10,000 level, please do. If you have more, you want to do 25, you could be the top at 50 or 100. But as I break it down, and I think getting to $1 million is 100 people putting in $10,000, and that just seems incredibly doable. And I hope that you will all be part of that.